And this week it's back to getting into articles. So this week it's getting into an article from the SciTech Daily. I'll link I'll put the link to the website in the comments below, like usual when I do link the articles and everything. So this one that I came across, that I was sent, kind of deals with cardio and lifting. Which do you do first? How do you go about it? And so the article kind of explains and of course it pretty much states, well, it depends and everything. So it does talk about how elite athletes have to kind of do both and everything. A perfect example of that would probably be with us being in the midst of the football season. If you think of football players, like your linemen, your receivers, your quarterbacks, running backs, all, and of course on the defensive side, your linemen, your linebackers, your defensive backs, all of them kind of need condition with the cardio. They need strength and everything, especially linemen pushing stuff out of the way so the running backs and receivers can get to where they need to go and everything. So now, of course, most of us aren't necessarily elite athletes because if you look at the population, there's 335 million Americans, and the number of elite athletes, you're looking at maybe tens of thousands of elite athletes. So in regards to elite athletes, well then as being a small percentage, you might say, well then why does this apply to us? Because the vast majority, well, it gets in the article gets into on the idea of why cardiovascular and strength training are two important ideas for your overall health. Now, for instance, with strength training, you're building not only muscular endurance, but you're also building a skeletal strength as well. So think of the frail 80-something-year-old who's all rigid, has the cane, or maybe the walker. They sit there, slip and fall, and break a hip. That's pretty much one of, if not the highest mortality rate when people start to go downhill. So to mitigate that, that's why we want to do strength training, because it helps especially forearms, be able when we do slip and fall, especially when we're older, we're able to catch ourselves and avoid injury, because especially when we're older, if we do slip and fall and break a hip or something, we become immobile, which in a sense has our health deteriorate even that much faster and everything. So this is the important reason on why you want to do strength training, to not only build the physical strength and everything, but also to build that skeletal strength to mitigate increasing your risk of pretty much all the stuff the negative consequences later in life. Now, you don't necessarily negate cardiovascular health, because you still need your heart health, and you still need your heart to be able to work, to be able to pump the blood and oxygen and everything to your body, so that way you can do your organs can do their normal thing and everything. So now the article, getting into the article again, it says, well, it depends how do you go about prioritizing one over the other. So this is where everything, it kind of gets complicated, and you have to kind of look at your unique situation. So if you're someone who's just starting out, a great way to do it is to kind of segment them, to do a strength training session and then a cardio session, and break them up over a day. So if you look at programs like Athlean-X's AX1, it's a 5-day-a-week program where you're doing 3 days of strength training and 2 days of conditioning. So for instance, you do you do your workouts in the stereotypical work week of Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you'd be doing strength training. Tuesdays, Thursdays, you'd be doing conditioning. When I first started getting back into fitness, I was doing 6 days. I was doing 3 days of strength training, 3 days of conditioning. Now, me, I'm big on saying that full body splits are the greatest way to get started for strength training, because if you're like me and you're coming in for the first time, or if you've never trained before, or if you're like me and getting back into it, full body workout for strength training comes in handy because it lets you hit like your shoulders, your biceps, your triceps, your chest, your back, your legs, all in one session. So that's like that's why I'm always saying that like that's probably like one of, if not the best way to get started and everything when you're brand spanking new to training. And then conditioning, like what I was doing, I was jumping on the elliptical. I would start out like maybe half an hour and slowly build myself up, and then once I could do an hour, I'd sit there and had the good old calorie tracker on the machine and everything. Of course, those aren't necessarily 100% accurate, but it does give you an idea. And like for me, like and for anyone out there else as well, it can give you a target number to beat. So like for instance, like with me building up to an hour, you can sit there and like, oh hey, look, based on what this machine, this elliptical says, it says I burnt 800 calories. Let me try and beat that. Next session, 810, and then you go up to 840, 850. So it gives you something, a tangible number to kind of like set a goal to beat and everything. So now, of course, as you progress and get more advanced in your training and everything, you don't necessarily want to do like a full body a split. You might want to get into like the other splits, like push pull legs, maybe doing upper lower splits, and of course just several different other ones. Like you could on one day you could do chest and back, the second day you do arms and shoulders, and then the third day you do legs, and you repeat those like, twice a week and everything for a 6 day a week like lifting split. Now of course you might say like, well, what about cardio then if you're doing like a 6 day a week lifting split? Well, then this is where it kind of gets complicated. Okay, do you do cardio before? Do you do it after? I mean, I'm someone who tends to do cardio after, and of course, like there's another one guy that's big in fitness, Jim Sapani. He came across that I came across years ago. He introduced me to the idea of doing cardio in between sets. So, for instance, when like you're sitting there and you're doing a bench press, you'll do like say 15 reps. You rack it, and then you'll sit there for like a minute for rest, and then you do your second set. His concept of doing cardio while doing lifting is like once like you do your first set, you rack the barbell or whatever when you're doing the bench press, you jump up and then like you kind of like do like running in place, or like you use the bench to kind of like do like a bunch of step ups and like do cardio in between your sets and everything. So that's another way you could get cardio in it as well, and it would in a sense ramp up like the intensity of your workout as well. So, and of course, like you could always do like 2 different sessions and everything. Like you could do like strength training in the morning, cardio at night, or whatever. Of course, unfortunately, a lot of us are like kind of constrained for time. We're working 40 hours a week. Okay, you have kids, and like okay, maybe you only have like a half an hour, 45 minutes to get into the gym, get a workout in, and then get out. So a concept like that, the article that I'll link to, like I said, is that like it kind of like gives you the idea of like doing things in like a spurts. Like you sit there and maybe do like 3 minutes on of like a strength training of like maybe like getting back to like the bench press. Maybe you do like 3 minutes straight of like exercises for the chest. And of course mixing up. Maybe you have a pair of dumbbells. You do like the bench press. You have one. You do like the kind of exercise where you're just holding it like this and you get the inner chest, and then maybe you go back and do like the flies. You do that for 3 minutes, and then you get up and do 3 minutes of cardio. So that's a way you could that this article introduces, that you could do it that way. So of course, like again, it all depends on like your position on where you're at, where you if you're brand new, I would say segment them into 2 separate workouts and everything, and like segment them over the week and everything. Why, like I mentioned, like the AX1 program, is that you're segmenting 3 sessions of strength training and 2 sessions of the conditioning over the course of a 5-day, in a sense, a 5-day split or whatever. So you're still getting both and everything. It lets you focus in on one or the other. Now, of course, you get to like, as you advance again, you get kind of into the point of like, okay, well, I've got like a decent level of strength and conditioning. Where do I kind of want to go from there? Do I want to start building more strength? So then I start gearing, kind of like pushing the needle more towards like the strength training side and start increasing my strength. Okay, well maybe like now I've increased my strength for instance, maybe my deadlift, I've gone from like say like 150 to 200 pounds. My bench press, I went from like 135 to like 155. My squat, I went from like say 200 to 250. So now I got like I built a decent amount of strength. Now I want to start focusing more on conditioning. So I maintain this, then I turn the needle more towards doing conditioning. So maybe I start like doing high intensity interval training, like sprints. Like you do an all out sprint for like a minute, and then you kind of do like a minute recovery, and then you do like five or six of those. Or maybe you start sitting there timing yourself for like a 5K run, like which is like 3.1 miles. So like you sit there and go on the elliptical, and you do it all out and try and time yourself. Like, oh hey, this time I did the 5K in 27 minutes. Okay, let me see if I can beat that. And so then, like while you're maintaining the strength, you're going back over here, and then once you build up that condition, maybe you get that 5K from down from 27 minutes, maybe down to like 24 minutes. Okay, now I want to start building more, now that I got a decent amount of conditioning, I go now start back and forth to like strength, and then I start increasing my lifts even more, so you can kind of bounce back and forth between what you want to do. So again, it all depends on like how you want to go about it. And of course, like a big thing like with me with getting started, you kind of want to maybe separate those two into like 5, maybe 6 sessions over the course of a week, like 3 lifting sessions, 2 or 3 conditioning sessions. And then once you get like a decent foundation, then you can kind of like assess and where you want to go from there. So this article is just like another kind of like idea on like how to go about getting your fitness and health in order.